that are happening around the U.S., but more specifically, those things that are happening in Buffalo and the type of action that we can use to model change around the United States. Because like I said here, being from Dallas, originally born in Cleveland, Ohio, but being raised in Dallas, I don't see this amount of activity toward change in just Dallas alone. We have 42 years combined experience as a Griot Nation in the community, and I can safely tell you that in Buffalo, I've seen the most concentrated amount of activity. And with that being said, they shine as a shining example and an authority on some of the things that we're experiencing nationwide and worldwide. Don't get it twisted. This is a global concept that we're going to discuss today, and that topic is gentrification. A lot of different angles that we see happening around this subject. I know Brooklyn, with the conversation with Jay-Z and the stadium that came to Brooklyn. Now they said that Brooklyn is for 32-year-old to 48-year-old white women now, you know, based on what took place in Brooklyn. You see people jogging down the street, you know, that didn't normally jog down the street in Brooklyn now. What was once known as Seneca Village now is, Central Park. You have a broad amount of security and different things taking place to protect the investments of some of the projects that have gone up as a result of gentrification. So we're being affected by this. Here in Buffalo, we did doing a story on John Schmidt, which is a long holdout at the Shoreline Apartments. His story, the injustices that we saw that took place in the process, however, not having a 5,000-foot view of understanding the complete process, we handled it from the ground up. With San Rafa being involved in this conversation, we know that there are some things that are taking place between government, between the neighborhood, with the community action organization and other organizations who are dedicated to getting the information to the people and changing the victimization narrative into a narrative of progressive action. And with that being the case, when it comes to gentrification, man, I know we just had a brief conversation before we kicked off. What from people who are experiencing it, because I'm not from Buffalo, I'm just coming in. What does that look like on the ground?
Well, let me first of all say, just what you said about Buffalo. A lot of times people in Buffalo don't know that. So it's, first of all, I just feel good to have somebody from outside of Buffalo come in and give that perspective so people just in Buffalo can hear that. Because in one of my consultant jobs, I get a chance to travel around the country, and I know what you're saying is true. Yes, I know a lot of the activity is going on, but when you're here and you're in the battle and you're just doing it, right, you can't look up and see what's going on in other places. But it's important to hear about, kind of the spirit of what's going on in Buffalo. And, and I know, talking about gentrification, I don't have a popular perspective on gentrification, because the general street conversation about that is that basically neighborhoods that have been neighborhoods where, African Americans primarily have lived for this last generation, all of a sudden are being moved. People from all, other communities are moving into those communities. So the two biggest ones I would say right now is obviously our Fruit Belt community, where the Buffalo Niagara Medical Campus is, where you had, basically African American home ownership for this entire last generation. Now that's a whole different community now. Right. You know what I'm saying? Probably the most current example is what we call Central Park. If I would have told somebody 2 years ago that Central Park right now, where Duncan grew up, it's been converted to Highland Park, you know what I'm saying? And it's a whole nother community envisioned there. People would not believe me based on, just all the stuff that was going on in Central Park for the last generation. So gentrification is alive, it's well, it's a whole new, there are 14,000 new units of housing being built along Main Street, you know what I'm saying? And half of that is the east side. And so there's a whole vision and plan for a whole new community of people to be on the east side of Buffalo, and so that's the root of gentrification. It's really taking place.
Wow, man. With that being the case, bro, my concern is that yes, it's happening, and how do we get the information to the people who are going to be affected the most, in your opinion?
One thing you said about kind of looking at Buffalo from the outside. I've lived in the South, so I lived in Alabama, so I got to see kind of what happened in Atlanta, the tail end of what happened in Atlanta, right. What's currently happening in Charlotte, where they are on kind of the spectrum of development. Right. Then what's happening in Montgomery. Montgomery is where Buffalo was, 12 years ago. So they're starting to try to plant the seeds to grow the city. So just looking at the development of cities in different phases, being able to see that, I can see it's going to happen, right? You can't have a successful city, whether it's the east side, west side, whatever, where you have a neighborhoods that are full of crime, dilapidated housing, all that type of stuff. And as a homeowner, I don't want that in my neighborhood. I want nicer houses to come. I want businesses to come around my area. And if that means I got to pay a little bit more in taxes, I'm okay with that, because I'd rather do that than deal with the crime, right? Because on one hand, you got the same people in our community saying crime is bad. We got to stop crime. We got to, make a difference. Our community need to be safer. Then saying, okay, but wait, we can't have new houses. We can't have development. We can't have new businesses and stuff. And so you can't have it both ways.
Right.
And so understanding that instead of, like you said earlier, about looking at it as a victim, figuring out how do we win, right? How do we get involved in the development and win? So whether it's, redoing Fillmore, whether it's getting some of that money that's flowing into the city, like there's a way for us to do it, but we've got to kind of, a lot of our this activity you all talked about, these community groups, these activists, everybody's looking at it like from the victim standpoint as opposed to the opportunity standpoint, right? So we could pool money and buy businesses. We can get LLCs for businesses so they could get some of the money for streetscaping and they can move into it. There are ways for us to benefit. And if we don't jump on it, somebody else, then yes, of course, they're going to come in and get all the money, get the benefits, everything like that. But, we don't have to be the victims of it. We can be winning in this conversation as well.
And if I can speak brother to brother,
yes,
the truth of the matter is we can do both. In other words, there's this possibility that as an African American community, we can have a thriving community, you know what I'm saying, and stay there and live there and raise our families there. You don't necessarily have to have communities integrate to get that as a result.
That's right.
But you can't do it reactively. See, right now what happens around gentrification is that you have a community that's not organized, that don't have a vision, that does not invest in this community, and and then all of a sudden somebody shows up with a vision and a plan, and people say, wait a minute, we was here first.
Right.
I got you. Because if you were there and you had a plan, when they showed up with a plan, would have ran into your plan. Right. It would have been a resistance to it. But you know how you choose a community to gentrify? Because you see there's no plan. Right. You see there's no proactive activity. You know what I'm saying? So that's how you kind of target that community. So what we have to really do is say to our community, we try to do that at the Community Action Organization, Better Schools, Better Neighborhood. Before we saw what's going on out down in Central Park, which is coming to Highland Park now, we was there 3 years ago. Right. Asking the community, saying, listen, what is this community going to look like 5 years from now? Most people were saying, listen, we tired of the violence, we tired of, the neglect, we just want to get out of here. You know what I'm saying? We just trying to sell our property. You know what I'm saying? And then people came and said, oh, you want to sell it? We'll buy it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so my thing is, crime rates drive property value to a large degree, right? So we have, I don't know if it's an accepted paradigm here in Buffalo, but I know nationwide, there is over-policing of our communities. Now, as a grassroots organization, if there's a crack house across the street from me, I'm not stereotyping anything, but if there's a crack house across the street from me, I'm knocking on the door saying, you gotta go. Now, if I don't do that because I'm afraid, and I ask the police to do it, then the statistics are gonna show that they came and dealt with that particular. Once those statistics show for a continuous amount of time, then the property value goes. So my question is to you, or I guess the conversation is, when you talk about people that want to leave their neighborhoods because of crime, right? But when did we get so dependent upon other authorities to take care of that particular idea that we rendered? Because to me, that's the essence of it. Like, if you don't take care of yourself, somebody else is going to come in and make a plan for you, and you're going to become a part of their plan. I know a lot of us, you probably never experienced this, and I probably never. I know people that were born into police occupation of their neighborhoods. Like, when they came out the womb,
that's all they know.
That's all they know. So when they walk down the street, they're searched randomly. I hear about it, but I never experienced it.
Well, let me jump in there. I have experienced it. Okay. So I grew up in Central Park. We talking about Central Park, right? Okay. I grew up there. I'm talking about from my house to where they doing this development in Central Park is literally a 4-minute walk. Okay. So you got to choose. Do you want police all neighborhoods searching the kids, harassing people, or do you want the Crips and the Bloods to run the neighborhood? right? Because that's what I grew up with, right? I grew up with Bloods on Montclair, right? So I couldn't even walk to a train station alone, Amherst Station. I needed escort from the older kids in the neighborhood to get somewhere safely. So, you know, when you talk about gentrification, like my parents told me, you have to leave this city. They said when you graduate high school, you have to leave. Because if not, you won't survive in this city. That's how bad it was growing up in Central Park, right? So now, when my parents, who are homeowners, want to trade that reality for a bunch of white folks coming in and the property value going up and, you know, taxes going up a little bit, yes, they'll trade that all day, because now I can send my kids over to stay tonight, to stay for the weekend, and they could be safe and they can feel safe about it, right? So, you know, again, there's got to be a way to do development without displacement, right? We want to be realistic, and we want to find ways where our neighbors can win, and we don't, you know, have to push out our seniors, push out folks who've been there for decades. But like my mother-in-law, her neighbor in the fruit belt on Locust sold their house for $250,000. Okay, I don't see that as a bad thing for black people. Right? If you got a house that's worth $38,000, you lived there for 80 years, your grandkids live there now, and they sold it for $250,000, that's family paradigm changing reality right there.
Right, but it's on. But like I heard
What they're saying?
Nate Hare at the graduation last night.
Okay.
If 2 days ago, if you don't take that money and reinvest it into that same neighborhood, then you don't create a place, like Sam said, where you don't have to leave.
Right.
So the paradigm does shift, right? Meaning that your personal situation changed. But the neighborhood you're moving out of, or the neighborhood by which these people are coming into, at some point, if everybody sells, no longer becomes yours. My question becomes, all I'm asking,
that's fair,
is from a grassroots perspective, because we all sit at the grassroots level. And I'll be damned. I remember from a reactionary standpoint, when we march and do all these things, when somebody's coming out of a crack house or running down the street and the police shoot them in the back or something, for, you know, the concept becomes at that point, you want to march. Well, why did you let them sell drugs in your neighborhood?
right?
That's the key.
And so,
But that's a generational conversation, though. I mean, and I think the important part is, and if we speaking brother to brother, I wouldn't necessarily say this in any setting, but if we speaking brother to brother,
No, man to man, brother to brother.
The truth of the matter, you ain't scared of that boy and the people in the neighborhood.
That's right.
You're not scared. You know them. You grow up with them. Them our kids.
That's right. Them Crips and Bloods is our babies.
That's the reality of the
Right.
situation. So the point is this: the situation existing because we have not had a vision and a plan that we are working on to make the community better. We kind of got into a situation where we surviving. We paying the bills. We living. Because in most of those situations we're talking about, where if take that same situation where that house is worth $250,000, if the homeowner there had a next generation of children that were coming up, taking control of that asset is worth more in their hands than sold,
It's
right?
sold.
But you know what I'm saying? That what that requires is that generation that was there when that house was $30,000, their children more than likely got an education, you know what I'm saying, and they left and they didn't come back. But even if they left and didn't come back, if they maintained the property, you know what I'm saying, their children, and understand that real estate is an asset. And you don't want to, if one way to deal with it is to sell it and then go invest somewhere else. But if you see something that you got that was $30,000 that's rising to $300,000 in value,
You buy another one. Reinvest.
chances are you refinance that one. You understand? Go ahead, take that money and invest broadly. So there are techniques and strategies that we can use to where we don't have to be pushed out of the neighborhood, but we have to get better. You know what I'm saying? We have to come up with our children a way to invest for our children, and our children are part of that. We can't leave. So instead of the children having to gang up and survive, they getting together and talking about how we invest in this property. Instead of having someone crack in the house, talking about how do we fix the house. But somebody has to teach those children how to fix those houses.
Because in survival mode,
Exactly.
you have to change the paradigm.
And that's I feel like that's a leadership thing. I feel like we don't have those type of leaders anymore that's ready to put the hands on, go in the community, teach the parents, teach the kids, deal with the drama, and say, I believe in y'all so much, I'm gonna sacrifice so much so that y'all generation will, be equipped with information and knowledge.
The Black Panthers, man, created over 200 programs that the government used. People don't realize
That's right.
because they were looked at as radical and anti-government, and that's how the narrative was put out after they were infiltrated. That people don't understand. They taught people, they fed people, they taught them gun rights. They were the first people to stand up against police brutality constitutionally, not just with the burn. So
Self-defense.
But that end result from a generational standpoint became, just like with Barack Obama, became political. In other words, they went into the political spectrum because a lot of them did, because they wanted to make change at a higher level, right? Now the question becomes, if I look at public housing in Buffalo, and the fact is that I know a sister right now who's part of her public housing was sold to a private investor. She didn't even know it. Somebody in BMHA or BHMA, I don't know.
BMHA?
Help me out. Excuse me. That was responsible for that public housing project or public housing in general, created a situation where it was able to be bought by a private corporation. The residents didn't even know. For 2 weeks, her toilet was, and because the people that were normally over told her, well, somebody else bought it, you got to wait for their maintenance situation to kick in. Here's the deal. Common council, whoever's on the behalf of the people that are standing there, my question becomes, I know you went into it to be able to affect change at a different level. Meaning that, like you say, your goals were altruistic and real. You didn't go in to sell the people out. Don't get it twisted. But as a part of the political process, that's exactly what it is. It's a process. And everybody has to be informed of that and understand. But the people that are not being informed, in my humble estimation, are the people that are living in that housing project.
Yeah, but
who don't know. So at that point, how do we bridge? Because like I said, I'm not saying they went in there to jerk people. Right. But once you get there, it's a process. So how do we bridge that gap is what I'm saying. And how can we not ignore that that's happening even though we're having this 5,000-foot conversation?
So the leadership is an issue, right? But here's, to me, the more important issue is those tenants in that housing project, right? See, because if you understand, just as a human being, your right over the space that you are in, that means you're involved in the tenant council. See, so the councilman is one thing, but the tenant council is where your power is at. There's no way they made that move on that without that tenant council being informed. But if you just showing up every day, going to work, going home, and you're not understanding that, even as a renter or a home, you have to start thinking towards home ownership, owning the space I'm in, and being responsible for what's happening around me. Because if you ain't responsible for what's happening around you,
somebody gonna come
there
in.
You go.
They gonna do
and so there's no way somebody came in and took that building, you know what I'm saying, secretly. You know what I'm saying? That happened in the open because they knew people wasn't paying attention. They know people are so dealing with the stresses of being in poverty.
So how do we deal with that?
So
that's the question.
We have to have a conversation with them and say, listen, I know poverty's hard. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts. We all been there, right? But here's the way out. You have to take full responsibility for what's happening to you. Because if you're looking for somebody else to come save you, see, that's where we lose at every time. We're looking for a leader or somebody to come do this for it. It don't go down that way.
We have a Messiah complex.
But there's two parts to that. So if just say you are educating those tenants, right? You doing the hard work, doing it, right? Now your kind of voice is being elevated now. People starting to look to you for guidance, right? Well, our first thing is we start tearing you down. Right? That's our next thing. So we start tearing you down. So now we got this.
When you say we, who are you speaking about?
I'm talking about other people who want to see themselves rise, or who think that you have gotten to a point that you have too much influence and they don't. So it's a self-hate thing. So then they reflect that by trying to tear you down instead of trying to make themselves more relevant in this situation.
That's part of the battle. I mean, that's what you're saying is true, but that's literally part of what comes with it. But if you helping enough people, those people ain't gonna let. So when somebody really making a difference in somebody's life, they don't care what other people have to say about that. You know what I'm saying? They ain't going for the gossip thing. Look, I mean, I hate to use this example, but this is real, right? Marion Barry got busted, using crack or the whole world to see. You know what I'm saying? And then turned around and got re-elected council member at large and got re-elected as mayor. Because what he did in those communities, he went in those communities and helped real people. And they didn't care about the fact that he got caught. They said, listen, you can't tell me when somebody ain't making a difference in my life. I know when they are. And I don't care what the propaganda is. I'm going to support the people who support me. And so we have to suffer those people who benefit from the status quo, because they are. You hit the nail on the head. They are going to attack. But we got to go out and do the work with the grassroots people and tell them to stop looking for other people to come do this for us. No doubt. You have to be responsible for what's happening in the house you live in.
And you can't, we got to get back to a point where when we know we are being wronged, we don't just take it. Like, we have been beat down so much as a community that something go wrong in the school, something go wrong in the community, something go wrong in the neighborhood. We just get on Facebook, complain about it and we feel like we did something, as opposed to actually finding out who's responsible for this wrong thing that's happened to me and chasing them down and nagging them until something happens right. That used to be the norm, right? Something happened in your community, oh, we need a stoplight here. And everybody on the street like, yeah, we need a stoplight here, right? There's a crime in the neighborhood, whoa, we need more police. We got a problem with crime. They will get together, they will make them fix the problem. Now, we disjointed, we don't trust our neighbors, we don't come together, and I'm not saying ever, but there are a lot of, pockets of our community, we just are not wired anymore to feel injustice and actually work towards a solution. We wired to scream. We feel the injustice and we scream and we post about it and we feel like that's it. And then we just take whatever else happens.
The main thing, and I like what Sam said, I understand what you're saying. At some point, you said we did do it, and then now we don't do it now. At some point it broke. And because, like Francis Cress Weston said, the people who do not respect themselves will not protect themselves.
There you go.
We have lost a sense of value.
That's right.
That's the reason why we don't fight.
Yeah.
The restoration for value. But here's the key. As long as I'm looking at TV and Mike Brown laying in the street, Philando Castile, his daughter telling his girlfriend that, look, don't do that. They're going to shoot you. His daughter literally started protecting his girlfriend after she watched her father be killed. That intuitive cognition that's natural that you're talking about has been so suppressed. It's been pushed down because they're literally, we're taught 6, but they're literally 32 senses, if not more. And one of them is a sense of justice. Once that's taken from you, eventually your spirit is like breaking a horse. You don't think to fight in the moment that the fight comes. Right? You look for a way to fight comfortably because you're afraid of 3 things: fear, pain, loss, death. That's how you control the people, right? Especially the people that's been traumatized. So the conversation becomes, for me, yeah, as long as you seeing Mike Brown, Philando Castile, they all laying on the ground, and we can talk about, why you don't respond to X, Y, Z. But when it's your daughter, different conversation. And so what I'm saying is, we're not completely dead.
That's right.
We're just misprioritized.
That's right.
And so with that, so our macro conscious, this village concept is either beneath the surface, dead, or it's somewhere that it needs to be brought out. And the conversation that Sam is having about getting there, when we say pockets of our community and this and that, it's all the same. It's all around the country. It's the same concept. What they did in Detroit was ridiculous. I got conspiracies where they sent contaminated milk. I got conspiracies where the water that go to a particular neighborhood is contaminated. You have people. But that's not to say that we can't fight that.
That's right.
And it's not to say that if we, what it's really saying, if we're not willing to fight it with our life, then somebody else is going to control our lives.
But we also got to fight proactively, not reactively.
Absolutely.
See, because we know, like what you said, when it's your daughter, you can react, right? But, Donald Elijah Muhammad had it real clear, a long time ago. He made to the extent that we do for ourselves, right? See, when we have a sense of entitlement, somebody's supposed to do something for us, right? Then you become dependent on them doing it for you, right? But here's the reality. If we take full and complete responsibility for what's going on in our neighborhood, so we checking the water when it comes to our neighborhood. We ain't taking it for granted.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? We checking the food that's coming to our neighborhood. We ain't taking it for granted.
But you have to be informed that, look, what I'm saying is you're absolutely right. At what process do you said go to the projects, let's get it cracking. You said go to these people, walk the streets. When politicians want to get elected, you see them door to door, right? So we can't be any less vigilant on a continuous basis in restoring this value and causing people to wake up and not being afraid. If you don't want to do it, you got to leave our neighborhood. If you're not going to be responsible for making sure that our children know that they have to be responsible for school and all the different things that's necessary so our neighborhoods have a proper value, then either we're going to give you, we're merciful, God-fearing people, we give you a great spirit, but you got to go. Because at the end of the day, I don't give a damn what the conversation is and what you look like. If you black, white, I don't care. At the end of the day, life is life. And if I want the quality of life, the value of my life to be what it is, I'm not going to allow you to come and superimpose any of your shit on me. And I don't care who you look like. If you're my next door neighbor, it's the same concept. And I don't think we've got down to that point yet.
You're listening to Brother, on Facebook. Make sure you like the page. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the heart buttons, the like buttons. Make sure you tune in.
For us to jump
Tell somebody about it. Make sure you share it with
we
somebody.
doing this.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, a lot of what you just said, I agree with 1,000%. And I feel like it's a self-love thing. When you have real, genuine self-love, self-joy, things that hit you, it's like a shield. It's like, it don't affect me. You know, this fad, this whatever, because the world is designed to control people with low self-esteem, right? So, but when you have this intense self-love, you don't take certain stuff, right? Beyonce not gonna let somebody slap her in public, right? She's just not. Okay, she's not going to allow that to happen and just be okay with it, right? We got to look at ourselves with that same level of love and respect, where we're not going to let somebody do that to us, and just carry that across the spectrum.
Like Sam said, man, it's hard to breathe, man. You leave your house every day. Look, we moved out of civil rights. Being civil, eating at the lunch counter don't get you equality. We've already established that you can't make nobody else value you, right?
But you can legislate that they can't. Martin Luther King says you can't legislate morality, but I can make it so you can't hit me in the face.
Well, I'm not worried about that, because you hit me in my face, that's gonna get dealt with right there. So and that's what we gotta be. You see what I'm saying?
But when you talk about gentrification,
if I'm standing on the corner with you, and the police come up and start harassing you, start abusing you, and then they get to the point to where it's a physical altercation, and I know emphatically that he owned one. It ain't got nothing to do with nothing we did. You think I'm gonna pull my cell phone out? You think I'm gonna sit there and scream? At that point, I have to neutralize and up to eliminate the threat on your life. And I don't give a damn who in the uniform. I wasn't taught that growing up.
Right.
Where somebody hits you, don't hit them back because they a teacher. If somebody is wronging you, they wronging you.
That's
the uniform ain't got nothing to do with it. It's the person, it's the mentality, and I know for a fact all the ills of the people that we suffer as a people are suffered inside that uniform. And I know that for a fact because we work with police officers. They have drug addictions. They go through all this. So these people are human. This whole concept, the point that I'm making is, this whole concept of when we talk about fighting back, and like Sam said, not being reactive, some of this stuff that is taking place directly on the ground on a daily basis. If somebody touches you, and it ain't got to be a police officer, it could be another gang member. If it's, like you talked about, if there were 7 or 8 people that made sure that every time an altercation went down to the neighborhood, we dealt with it, then you got a whole different paradigm for people that's coming down to the neighborhood to deal with us. In my mind, man, we have moved away from fundamental things of survival and self-preservation that has put us in a position where we start talking about legislation and moving the ball. The people that we've moved out of civil rights. Now we're trying to push this thing about human rights. But the truth of the matter is, like Sam said, we in the mode of survival rights right now. The right to just to be able to, when them lights come on behind your ass, you got a different reality sitting in your car. Right. And I don't care what you look like. Right. And so now you got to wait the process out. And you're at the mercy of the individual that's behind you.
Right. And so you're right.
So what I'm saying to you is, that dynamic has to change. The fear that we operate with on a daily basis is blocking the self-love. And that's the truth. Fear and self-love can't live in the same spirit. That has to change.
Right. And what I'm saying,
that don't change by saying let's legislate. It changed by saying, Sam, you put your hands on me again.
Right.
And why? Because
but you can't legislate that them lights that flash behind you.
But
let me finish. The person driving that car is a member of your community. That you can change through legislation. So
But how do you push the legislation though? You know how you push the legislation? In my humble estimation, it's a couple of different ways you push the legislation. One of the ways, they looking up and saying, damn, police officers are getting against police officers. We want to see none of them die. Those that uphold the law, thank you. But those who come into our neighborhoods, and like you said, are part of our neighborhoods and victimize us, this is what the result is going to be. And we're willing to go to court for it and or die. We have to push a different narrative so our people can say somebody is standing up. They ain't gonna wait for no damn law to be. You know what happened? After all that stuff happened, we gotta sit and wait on the verdict. And every single time, like Sam say, from a reactive standpoint, our hearts are broken, mothers are dying, and every time that happens, that sense of justice gets pushed to the bottom. But like Martin Luther King said, it explodes back from the top in the language of the people, which is riots.
So strategically, if we now make a paradigm shift, we say, okay, that's the way we thought.
We're going to tie this to gentrification.
Right. Because it is gentrification, right? So the paradigm shift is how we go from reactive to proactive, right? So let's say that's happening in my car, right? So here's the reality. If it's my neighborhood, so because that's a question mark. If it's your neighborhood, because if it's your neighborhood, you got some say so about what's going on. So you ain't talking about what people are doing to you in your neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Whoa. If he ain't from my neighborhood, you know what I'm saying, he's working for me if it's my neighborhood.
That's
you know
what it's
I'm
supposed
saying?
to be.
So that's my point. So if you're saying to people that this is our neighborhood, we have to take care of our neighborhood. We have to be responsible for what happens in our neighborhood. If somebody, or even a police officer, come into my neighborhood and we have a collective ownership of the neighborhood and they ain't dealing with us right, we say, hold up, stop. You know what I'm saying? What is the process for confronting that? And have an expectation. So one pull us over, we have a conversation, brother to brother. Yo, that cop pulled us over, what's his name? You know what I'm saying? What precinct he's out of. See, they work together as a unit and they choose the place they go to attack at because they know it's not going to be a defense because there's no proactive work going on.
No education.
So if there's proactive work going on, you know what they do? Any, meeny, miny, oh, if he holler, let him go. You know what I'm saying? They don't go to those places where you organize yourself and you defend yourself. So when we see young people having those kind of challenges, we don't get mad and upset with them. We say, come here, let me show you. This is how this goes. You know what I'm saying? If you want that corner, you know what I'm saying? Here's the process for protecting that corner. You know what I'm saying? Here's the process. Now, if you're doing something illegal, you know what I'm saying, or you doing something that hurts somebody or that creates a threat, you know what I'm saying, you can't have a reaction to other people doing stuff illegal. You know what I'm saying? Because they doing stuff illegal because they know you can't do nothing about it. You compromise. You know what I'm saying? So here's the challenge. You know what I'm saying? If we want to come up with a way to say what we want to do is we want to create value in our community so that, for example, you might be doing something illegal while somebody in your own neighborhood is doing something legal that you could be doing. Somebody else from outside your neighborhood is there with a store, you know what I'm saying, and you on the corner or at that store doing something illegal. He's have a legal store right there. So let's come up with a plan to work you into store ownership because it don't happen reactively. It happens proactively. So he's out there on the corner selling. Dr. King said leadership is dynamic, therefore influenceable. Him being out there on the corner is a leadership position. I mean, there's something that has to be active in him to be able to go, or her to go out there and be there. Now what we do is we have to have the genuine love to go and say, okay, how do I redirect that? And a real conversation. And you got to put yourself in a position to have resources to do that. You got to put yourself in a position to be able to follow through to do that. And you have to do it. This ain't a conversation. This is real concrete work.
Right.
And from my perspective, of taking it back to gentrification, I'm all right with people having a reactive conversation about it. I just don't want to participate in it. I'm interested in the conversation about what we proactively going to do. Because I'm not trying to keep people out the community, you know what I'm saying, just so we can keep the community the way it is. If you're saying we keeping people out the community because we got something going on and people want to do something different, well, let's defend against that. But if you ain't got nothing else going on in the community, people are coming into that community. You under the illusion to think that property value was driven that low for a reason. People intentionally drove that property value that low so they can come in, get it real cheap, you know what I'm saying, and then bring up the value of it. And because you participate in keeping it that low, how do you participate? You in your house, you don't keep your house up. You participate in a set of activities that cause the property value to go down. Because if you were there saying, no, I got a long-term vision for my neighborhood. I'm working on bringing my property value up. I'm working on keeping my property looking a certain kind of way. You resist people doing something to change that.
And I just want to say, there's some places, like I said, I was living in Alabama, their neighborhoods in Montgomery, their neighborhood association, and I'm not talking about like the well-to-do affluent, I'm talking about just your average normal neighborhood that you might see on Beverly Road or over off of Bailey, on Minnesota or something, just a regular neighborhood. Their neighborhood association was so powerful as far as they met regularly, they all knew each other, whatever, that if a new business wanted to open, before they could even go to the city council to get a business license, they had to go to the neighborhood association. And if they didn't, the city council member would call the neighborhood association members to come to the meeting and give testimony on would they like this business in their neighborhood.
That's their neighborhood. See, that's their neighborhood. See, that's the conversation we got to have. If we having a problem with something going on, let's take our neighborhood back. Just like people talking about, let's take America back. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, the most fundamental level, take your house back. Is your house your house? Because it's all right to start off as a renter, right? It's all right to start off there. But here it is. There's a process, not a difficult process. I'm talking about you can even actually own public housing. Tenant councils can actually buy public housing legally. You know what I'm saying? There's a process. If you're a renter right now, you have to have a vision of how do I move from renter to owner, right? You actually have to make a series of decisions properly guided on how to move your credit rating the way you need to do, pay your bill. It's a series of steps. And then listen to me. It's hard. It ain't nothing easy about it. But it's doable. And we can't keep saying generation to generation, you have to deal with people oppressing you. You have to get into your mind that you got to do something for yourself. You know what I'm saying? You got to do something for your family. And you and your family is where your initial responsibility is at. And if you ain't empowered to do that, how much of your life you want to spend going out reacting to people constantly doing stuff to you?
And you want to fight gentrification? That's the answer. Well, that's one answer. I'm not going to say that's the only, but that's one answer. Take your neighborhood back. Take control. Build a neighborhood association. And if you already got one, get involved and make it so powerful that they can't come into your neighborhood without your say-so. I literally just talked to a developer yesterday, and he said in Buffalo, it is so difficult to develop because there's so many neighborhoods and block clubs we got to deal with. He said we can't just come in, talk to one group, get the approval, and move forward. We got to talk to all these different groups. So make your neighborhood one of them groups.
Last year, somebody from outside this neighborhood came and imposed something on this neighborhood against our will. You know what I'm saying? So listen, what did that do for us? That made us come into terms with the reality that we didn't have that flank defended. Somebody was able to do that to us. You know what I'm saying? So in chess terms, what do? Now that I know that weakness, what I gotta do? I gotta confront the fact that that was a weakness that somebody took advantage of, and I have a fundamental responsibility to reposition ourselves to defend against that. So what we do? We said, okay, it happened. We can't deny it happened. So now we reorganize ourselves, start organizing people so that the next time that come around, oh, you ain't gonna get us that way again, and we ain't gonna have an overreaction to the fact that you did it last time. You know what I'm saying?
Because you don't want to get caught up.
Yeah, that's right. You did it, right? You know what I'm saying? And you won the short run. You know what I'm saying? You might have won the battle, but this is where we live at. We fighting the war. We going for the long run. So guess what? Over time, you know what I'm saying, that person who imposed, you know what I'm saying, they imposed thinking that the people in the community was going to choose them over us who live here. You know what I'm saying? And it's a bad calculation. Because in the long run, we going to win. You know what I'm saying? He won't be here 2 years from now. I know that already. You know what I'm saying? Because I know what we do every single day.
Right.
You ain't gonna come in here and disrespect and impose, and you think you're gonna be you ain't gonna be there comfortably. You know what I'm saying? And we're gonna organize right around you, and then boom, you're gonna be out, and then the next person that's gonna be there is gonna be of us, for us, and be supported by this community.
Right. Okay, so I mean, y'all touched on a lot of things. I could go a lot of ways, but point well taken. I think that when you talk about, it's either one or two people. Okay, let me say this. We have a generational class of people who have been relegated to a permanent underclass that look like us and look like others, depending on what your financial, whatever that looks like, but have been relegated not by us through some of our actions, no doubt, but when the cycle started, through COINTELPRO, when things kicked in, people wasn't aware of what was happening. We began to engage in activities unknowingly that were clandestinely set in motion, like you said, Crips and Bloods, for instance. We initially were fighting for our neighborhoods. One side was giving red, one side was giving blue, infiltrate. That wasn't a choice. You control the resources that control our lives. Let's be clear about this. If you got up and went to the grocery store right now in your neighborhood, and that supplier didn't put the groceries in there, then of course, we call him a man at the African Heritage Food Co-op, which we should be doing anyway.
Period. See, that we got to say that part.
Exactly. So that's the point.
Because he know where the food is actually grown at.
Exactly.
And get it out of the ground. He ain't talking about the store, and he's giving you the opportunity to know that too. Now, if you say, no, I don't want that, that's still, I want to get stuff from the store, you undermine that.
Right. And there is a disenfranchised population that are not as aware. Everybody has consciousness, just at different levels.
Absolutely.
It's things that I know and that I have in my level of awareness that tells me do X, Y, Z. If I look at somebody else that's doing something that seems to be against their own survival, self-preservation, like, dude, you turn your neighborhood up. I guarantee you in 30 minutes of conversation with that individual, he could teach me something that I don't know.
That's right.
So this gap is an illusion, is what I'm saying, because we all can benefit from one another. So when we say these people, those people, and then we switch the narrative to a we,
that's right.
Then we pull our sleeves up.
I heard you
roll
talking
our
about
sleeves
that
up.
the other day.
Yep, we sit down, we say, okay, bro. I remember when I was over, I did the National Night Out, and I spoke with the Deputy Police Commissioner, beautiful sister. And brother was telling me how the two housing projects were at war with one another, and there was murders taking place, little babies weren't making the news and all this. And I said, man, we should come out and forget the National Night Out. That's deep, but what we gonna do? Like, we should come out, set up a live broadcast, and have these conversations before punitive actions are taken and laws are changed around this whole paradigm, before we had an opportunity to to take control of it. The problem becomes the harvest is vast, but the laborers are few.
That's right.
So you have a whole section of our people that are disenfranchised, that is driving this narrative, because in a capitalistic society, they are the end game. And what ends up happening, even for us, these are the people we got to reach. The people in government everybody trying to reach the people that don't know, either to waking them up or taking advantage of them, one of the two.
Right.
Our processes in our conversation, when we talk about this we and us, what do we do? CAO, big ups in that regard. Sitting in the middle of a neighborhood saying whatever the hell y'all need, come holler.
Exactly.
Period. End of discussion. I've been here. I've seen it.
And a resource center, because reacting is one thing, but proactively saying, listen, for those people is one thing. Like you said, the laborers are few, right? So when you find somebody that's moving in the right direction, you have to give them a resource so they can keep
give them support.
So we got a space where you got computers, you got copiers, you got place to come and work from to keep them moving moving in the right direction. But more importantly, you have to genuinely love the people that you're doing it for, brother. I mean, let's keep this real. You came to me the other day and you said, out of genuine care, brother to brother, you know what I'm saying? Listen, I'm into the health thing. I can see that potentially that may be an issue, may not be an issue, but listen, let me just real. You know what I'm saying? You took me to the side quietly, you know what I'm saying? That's you don't have to do that, but that's what you do, right? And you understand that if I got something to be able to help my brother, let me help my brother so we can both be better off as a result of it. We gotta go do that in our community. We gotta say, whatever your skill set is, whatever you are a master of, whatever it is that you have to offer, we gotta start to offer it to each other and stop criticizing, judging, tearing down,
right.
Because ain't nothing nobody can do with that. You need something to lift you up, and when you need help, the person who do that, they know you need help. You ain't got to tell them you need help.
Because I'm right there with you.
They can see that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, you're listening to Brother to Brother. We want to take a short Facebook moment here. Comment from Rashad Perry. He said, I'm really proud of the gentleman here. Rashid Wyatt says, you are on it, Mr. Radford. And he also said, we have to understand the policies that govern us and prepare a plan to improve our economic viability. I also want to give out a shout out to Pearlie Gates, whose idea of Brother to Brother has come to fruition, and this is our 3rd year. So gentlemen, you go ahead and continue. Right now you listen to Unseen, Sam Radford and Duncan Cuckworth here in Buffalo, New York.
And what Councilmember Wyatt said is critical, because to the point Duncan said about legislation, a lot of us are reacting because somebody has already set the policy and set the legislation. We got to know that we got to be policy makers. You know what I'm saying? So what are the policies that are going to protect our interests?
Yeah, you fight the war at different levels.
Exactly. On all levels.
On all levels. And the misconception, if you take the Uncle Tom Sambo story, Uncle Tom was the first espionage agent.
Exactly.
He was looked at as a sellout.
Exactly.
He would get the information, take it back. This is what's happening.
Spook who sat by the door. He wanted to be seen as a sellout so he could work.
So he's sitting in the house, and Master say, well, look, in front of his friends, aren't your people shifting lazy? Uncle Tom say, no, sir. Say, aren't your people shifting lazy? No, sir. The slave master told his friend, look, you need to get your nigga in order. He's like, okay. So rather than him whooping him, after so many times Uncle Tom wouldn't submit, he went and got Sambo. Sambo came in and whooped Uncle Tom until he killed him. The story, when it comes to us in high levels of operation, with, like the brother say, with good hearts and love for our people, operating in a system that I don't give a damn how you cut it. Nobody's gonna come in, set up a system, and to benefit you.
Exactly.
That's not the math. So we have to go into this thing.
That's right.
Okay.
As it's always been a warrior class of people from generation to generation, whether you see them or not.
True.
As media, it's our job to get this narrative to the people. Say, look, man, we fighting. Don't get it twisted. You may be tired, but we fight.
That's right.
And I just wanted to say, when we talk about legislation and politics, I know we kind of getting away from the gentrification side.
No, it's all tied in.
Martin Luther King talked about a lot of times people leave the black community and go to the table with the decision makers, with the white folks, and then they leave as our representative to them, to the power structure. But then they get there and they stay there a while, and they start liking it, they get flattered, they get some titles, and all of a sudden they come back to us as their representative to us. Okay? And so that is something we have to fight against. We have to fight against it with our resources.
And hold them accountable.
Yeah, not just holding them accountable, we have to put up the resources. So when like for example, it wouldn't take $800 million to change our education system. Guess what? We got a school board election coming up in 2019. Every single member is up for re-election. If we got 4 people from our community who we said they are for our kids 100%, and we put up money, everybody put up $50, $100, and we gave $3,000 to each candidate, they win.
Yes.
And then when they went in there, they're beholden to our community.
So that's not so the issue becomes now that's been true for the last 20 years, right?
Right.
The union know that, right? So the union put up the money, right? So here's our challenge, right? We know that now. We know the union does the same thing every single year because they know that we're going to talk about it but not do it. So our challenge is now this is 2017. That election until 2019. So now, as opposed to people coming out in February of 2019 for an election that's going to come in May and saying I'm interested, we have to see people who are working in the community now, and we have to say, listen, we have to proactively put together a plan of people who understand and are studying how this works in our interest, and we want you from 2019, it's a 3 and a 5 year position, we want to have your plan from 2019 to 2022 and 2025, and we need to have a clear, 2024, we have a clear plan on how you are going to use education to achieve these goals in our community. See, that conversation had now, it ain't reactive. You can sit down, you can think it out, you can get information, and you can strategically. Now, here's the point. There's a group of people in union circles right now planning on which one of us they're going to buy off. Which one of us they're going to cultivate to be able to represent their interests. They have a strategy. Our point is that we can't ever expect them not to do that. Because listen, they literally their whole system. Our education system is not even an education system; it's an employment system. 80% of the people who work in our education system are white and live in the suburbs. They don't live in our community. You know what I'm saying? They're not of our community, but that is really the backbone of what's sustaining their suburban lifestyle. Right. So they are doing everything they can to maintain that. You can't even judge that. At the end of the day, you'll say, okay. Just like you're doing for you, we doing for us. And here's our plan, and we have to get our people to buy our plan. Because just like he said, Mr. Fuku said next to the door, if our people don't buy into our plan, you know, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? So I think that possibly, now we said it. So the question is, who takes the leadership? And you ain't got to do that on the big stage. You could quietly be sitting somewhere in the living room. That's right. Planning for 2019. You know what I'm saying? Right. So that in 2019 you show up and say, here's our plan.
That's important because as a matter of war, that's exactly what you want to do. Mm-hmm. You want to develop your convictions behind closed doors, mm-hmm. right? And we want to come out with those. I'm not concerned with having masses of people, man. If we can get 10 to 20, that's serious. That's better than 100. That's not.
Absolutely.
And so this narrative, as we begin to change this thing, because I believe I'm not from Buffalo, and I'm gonna deal with the other elephant in the room concerning Buffalo because I can. And I did about 7 to 8 years here. Everybody looked when I said that.
What's the elephant in the room?
So you got 7 to 8 people out of 10 that's doing something, but not working together.
Right.
So Martin Luther King's biggest problem was the clergy. It wasn't the people he was trying to save. They always argued and criticized and went back and forth. They didn't even want him in certain circles because he was upsetting the status quo, as you was just saying. And so, or you were saying. So the whole question becomes at this point, how can we? Because guess what? As I'm talking to the 7 to 8, because that's what we do. We all got the same goal. Believe it or not, nobody's here trying to not do for the community. That's is right. What I'm saying. Now you may have some personal situation. We may be able to weed you out on ego and some other things you're doing. You might just be a jerk, mm-hmm. But we'll never know that if we don't have a unified plan like Sam said that filters that type of mentality out. So the question becomes, I already know that if Sam says something in motion, 6 people gonna come and say, no, that ain't, and then if they said something in motion, Sam gonna have to sit back and say, damn, now how do I strategize around this? With Buffalo being so small, how do we create a platform where everybody can come to the table with opposing views? Because that's what creates constructive conversation to bring forth a plan that we all can work on. Because again, if somebody I seen it in the mayoral race. If somebody gonna take 30% of the people and tell them to come out on the 18th, and Sam is saying, look, we need to start now. You see what I'm saying? Don't wait till the next February. Then there's a war. Now, I said that to say this because I know I'm saying a lot. So that platform will bring and if you watch the great debaters, we debated with one another to raise the level of consciousness and move as a unit. We didn't debate with one another to criticize and tear each other down. Right. That dynamic has changed. So I'm saying I've witnessed that in Buffalo. What's the solution?
I feel like the solution is to love harder. Right, so people who are conscious, who have some of this knowledge.
Hold on, not just in Buffalo. Don't get it twisted. That's not unique to Buffalo. Right. We have that as a people that's been traumatized. It's been superimposed upon us throughout the whole world.
Right.
But I got an idea for a solution. But go ahead.
But yeah, and make sure you like and share this video so everybody else can see it. It's to show that example. Like Sam gave the example of teaching somebody, like, I've got this skill, I'm a, whether it's health and stuff, whatever, here, let me pour this into you. We just got to do more of that. Because the first time somebody does something for you that they didn't have to do, teach you something, build you, your first reaction after your joy and you just thankful is to do that for somebody else. Like, that's just a natural human emotion. Like, you feel like somebody blessed you, you feel like, well, who could I bless? And so we need to do much more of that. And then also we got to learn how to separate the organizations and the activists who are paid to do certain things, right? So it's not a bad thing for you to live out your life dream and fight for a cause you believe in and get paid to do it. But let's not confuse those people who are being paid to do something with individuals who are volunteering their time and they're really fighting because this is their home, this is their neighborhood, these are their kids, right? Those people are different from nonprofits that are being paid to do something. Now, that don't mean one is better than the other. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying they're different. So now a person who's an activist who's paid to do it has certain things they have to do. Right? They have certain type of controversy that needs to be created. Right. Certain type of media hits. They got to get a certain number of media hits. That's why I have you sign into every media. So you got to have a certain number of people show up at the meeting. Some number of pastors that support the mission and signed up in MOUs and stuff. And that's not a bad thing, but you just have to understand that there are different, but they're interest conversion. There are always places where we all can work together, and we got to have the issue be more important that we want to support than our individual issues and getting shine for that. So,
well, if I was gonna say, let me just make this one point. So brother to brother, straight up.
I like you said that my whole time. So the brand is definitely alive in this one.
Yes. Because I'm being honest, because I wouldn't necessarily say this in all contexts. I'm saying this in this context specifically, right? It's really strategically not a bad thing that everybody ain't unified, because in a lot of ways, that's the easiest people to take out. The people who congregate all as one group, you know what I'm saying? And it's also easy to buy people off, you know what I'm saying? And get people to contaminate something, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just saying, it don't feel good, but if you got pure-hearted, you got pure-hearted people who are working in separate pockets, you know what I'm saying? Right. And they getting it done, you know what I'm saying? See, when somebody else is good at what they do, they ain't gotta say nothing to me. I can see that. I mean, if I'm a master of my craft, I recognize when somebody practicing a craft.
I'm speaking to the people that neutralize other people. I'm not speaking to you. You're absolutely right. You definitely want to be diversified in how you move. Don't get it twisted. But I'm talking about people who are neutralizing other people. People who are coming out against things. First of all, I think you should judge the behavior of the individual. I mean, you judge the heart of the individual, not the behavior. And look, man, what are you really trying to do? Evidently, what you're doing is XYZ, so let me talk to you for a minute. Not just because I see you doing something that I think is bad that I just jump on that behavior. So in that balance of the scope, what I'm saying is I'm talking about people that's neutralized.
I know, but even when they try to neutralize, at the end of the day, if I'm a master of my craft, I know what I'm doing, all I can do is strengthen me. You can't stop me. You can't take me out. You know what I'm saying? You're just talking. You know what I'm saying?
But that's personal. I'm talking about the people that we are looking to get to and bring up so that we can all move it. They are watching this play out and being divided.
So it starts at the most fundamental level of your children. You know what I'm saying? So let's not get it twisted. You know what I'm saying? You got direct control, direct influence over yours, right? And then if you talking about somebody else before you handle yours, you're talking too soon, right? So you talk about your children, you talk about your relatives, your neighbors. So the people you need, you are personally responsible for. You can get to them. Ain't nobody neutralizing them. You know what I'm saying? So the point is, we want to empower people to do what's doable. You know what I'm saying? We don't want people trying to save the whole world. So if everybody clean out in front of their own front door, we all have a clean neighborhood. You know what I'm saying?
Agree. All right, you all were recently talking about politics. So India Walton makes the comment, we support our candidates with our mouths, but not our money. So for anyone to run a viable campaign, they must obtain funding from major parties, unions, or lobbyists. You can't win an election without money. Sad but true. Does anybody want to address that?
Yeah, I just ran for office.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? And my campaign was funded by individuals. 80, I had like, I think a third of my money came from my fraternity brothers, Alpha. Shouts out, we just had Founders Day. Another third came from teachers. Another third came from soldiers, and then a little bit left over that came. And I did get some. I had a couple groups, throw me 500, something like that. But I really did. I didn't have no endorsements, no major organizations, no major funders like that. It was just $50, $100, $50. You know what I'm saying? So it is possible. You just have to, number one, do the work, and number two, have something. People have to believe in you. They have to see that you have gotten results, and you can, and you're not gonna sell them out. They know because you've been doing it for years that when you say you're gonna do something, you're gonna do it.
In India, it makes a really good point, right? Even if that was true yesterday,
yes, sir.
That bottom line, the union come in and spend enough money, they can prop up they can, they can send or whoever the groups are, you prop up they can and send that. So we learn from that, right? But here's the point. Take Duncan's example. I'm saying, if we have to decide to say that publicly, first of all, where'd your money come from? You know what I'm saying? What's your responsibility to them? Then you have to have people of and from you now say, I want to run, and then you got to go and you got to make the money and you got to make it happen. And even if you don't win, Duncan didn't win the race, right? But the fact that he was in the race,
that's right,
and his money came from us, you know what I'm saying, means that we learned from that and we got to go back at it again.
That's right.
And again, till we get control of that, because the union, even when they lose, or those organizations, even when they lose, right, they go back and strategize and come back and figure out how to win next time. So we are trying to systematically and methodically get back control of the place where we live at. Right. We can't chase people out of something we are not planning for. See, this is not something you do overnight. This is like growing a crop. You gotta go, prepare the ground, till the soil, put it in there,
but that's
and grow.
A very good point. Because the point by which the neighborhood is being gentrified was a process.
Exactly.
And then the point by which you're gonna turn it around is gonna be a process.
Absolutely.
What we're trying to do is lay the framework for not only just the process, but the mentality. We're trying to lay the framework for the type of people that we actually want to be doing this work. And in my humble estimation, the only person I want to do is, like Sam said, the person that's doing it for themselves.
Exactly.
Because then that example is most people learn by example more than they do by words.
You said it. You used the key word, mentality. See, gentrification takes place mentally before it takes place physically. Right? See, if you letting people into your space, so they actually come into your mind frame first. You actually empower people in your thinking before they actually can empower you. You know what I'm saying? Because listen, nothing ain't a problem till it's a problem. But once it's a problem,
it's a problem.
I gotta address it. You know what I'm saying? And if I don't address it, problems build up and they overwhelm me. You know what I'm saying? But if I address them one at a time, and I get the process of addressing them, then people know when you come this way, they gonna address it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And they respect you. They may not like you, but they respect you. You know what I'm saying? So our first work is self-respect. Our first work is our own internal standards. Our first work is not to be mentally gentrified. Not to think that somebody else gotta make it better for us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because that's what people actually asking. Can somebody else come in here and make it better for us in our own mind? Yeah. As opposed to we can do that.
Okay, so this has been Brother to Brother. We're getting ready to wrap this up. The first inaugural show that we've done in Buffalo, most invigorating, great conversation, brother to brother, talking about gentrification, really talking about anti-gentrification through our world. In other words, there's nothing wrong with the neighborhood being gentrified as long as we do it, meaning that we improve our own neighborhoods, and we have to change the narrative in learning how to take control by first changing our mentality of saying we're going to take control. Be responsible, get out, and make it happen. A lot of great resources at the CAO Center and around Buffalo. We as a Griot Nation, Mindframe Media, and any other media outlet that's concerned with us will be dedicated to make sure that this information gets out and that the people know that they have a place where they can help themselves and change their lives. Mr. Kirkwood said something that was very important. You have to have a person that believes in the people, or actually that the people can believe in. But since our people are so torn up, since our people are so traumatized, it's more important that that person continues to believe in the people. I remember the statement when he said, God said, when the man was locked up in the Count of Monte Cristo, and he kept writing, God will give me justice on the wall, and the man said, that dug up through his cell after 8 years of being locked up unjustly. And he told him, he said, don't forget God. And the man that had been locked up 8 years unjustly said, I don't believe in God anymore. He said, that don't matter because he still believes in you. Ooh. That's what we need. This has been Brother to Brother. My man Sam Ralph, Big Brother,
already,
and my man Duncan Kirkwood. We're going to keep the conversation building, man. Y'all hold it down till next Wednesday. Life. love, and liberation.